The text came through while I was installing the last curtain rod in my new beach house. Dad. Perfect timing. Kelly and I have decided to move the whole family to the coast. We'll take the beach house. You can keep your city apartment. My name is Frank Morrison. I'm 63 years old, a retired civil engineer from Charleston, South Carolina. I spent 40 years designing bridges and highway systems, saving every dollar I could, planning for this moment. 3 months ago, I finally bought my dream property, a 2-bedroom beach cottage in Folly Beach, right on the Atlantic Ocean. And now my son-in-law, Derek, was telling me his family was moving in. I read the text again. Not asking, not requesting, telling. My daughter Jessica called 10 minutes later. Dad, isn't it great? Derek found out his company will let him work remotely full-time. We can finally get out of Colombia. The kids will love being at the beach. Jessica, I just bought this house 3 months ago. I know. Perfect timing, right? We were looking at rentals, but then Derek said, "Why rent when you have a beach house sitting empty most of the time?" It's not sitting empty. I live here. Dad, be reasonable. You're one person. We're a family of 5. We need the space more than you do. Plus, you still have the apartment in Charleston. The apartment I kept specifically so I have a place to stay when I visit the city. Exactly. So you don't need 2 places. Derek's already given notice on our rental. We're moving next Friday. You've got a week to clear out your personal stuff. She hung up before I could respond. I stood in my living room, looking out at the Atlantic Ocean. The water was calm, waves rolling in with rhythmic precision. I'd waited 40 years for this view, 40 years of 60-hour work weeks, cheap apartments, and budget meals, of driving my old Honda until the wheels nearly fell off. This house was everything I'd dreamed of, 900 square feet of peace. A small deck overlooking the beach. A kitchen big enough to cook the meals I'd learned to make after my wife Sarah died 8 years ago. A bedroom where I could fall asleep to the sound of waves and wake up to the sunrise over the ocean. And Derek thought he could just take it. I pulled out my phone and called my old friend Marcus, who'd been a marine biologist before retiring. Marcus, I need some information about local shark activity. Frank? You worried about swimming? Not exactly. I need to know the most alarming way to present factual shark information to someone who doesn't understand the ocean. Marcus laughed. What are you planning? Education. Just education. Over the next week, I prepared meticulously. I'd spent 40 years as an engineer, which meant I understood systems, timing, and how small details create big impacts. First, I researched tide schedules. Folly Beach had significant tidal changes, and the week of Derek's arrival would feature some of the highest tides of the year, spring tides, when the moon and sun align to create maximum water movement. Second, I checked the air conditioning system. The house had 2 units, one for the living area, one for the bedrooms. Both worked perfectly, but they didn't need to. Third, I compiled information, local wildlife data, beach safety reports, property maintenance requirements, and neighborhood regulations. Fourth, I made arrangements with my neighbors. Folly Beach was a tight-knit community, and my neighbors had already expressed concern about a family of 5 moving into a house designed for 2 people at most. Derek texted daily with updates. He'd hired movers. He'd bought beach toys for the kids. He'd already started telling people about his beach house. Dad, make sure the Wi-Fi password is written down somewhere. I need strong internet for work. Dad, we're bringing our king bed. Which bedroom is bigger? Dad, Kelly wants to paint the living room. What color did you use? We're going with coastal blue. I responded to none of them. Friday arrived. I'd moved most of my personal belongings to the Charleston apartment, but I'd left some strategic items behind. Family photos in odd places, my engineering books scattered around, Sarah's favorite chair positioned to face the window. Most importantly, I'd left the welcome packet. Derek's SUV pulled into the driveway at 2 p.m., followed by a moving truck. I watched from across the street, sitting in my old Honda, coffee in hand. Jessica got out first, followed by 3 kids, ages 8, 6, and 4. They ran immediately toward the beach, shouting about sand and water. Derek stood in the driveway, hands on his hips, surveying his new domain like a conquering general. He was 36, worked in tech sales, and had always treated me like I was senile and in the way. Kelly, my daughter Jessica's wife, looked tired. She was 34, a stay-at-home mom who'd given up her nursing career when the kids were born. She caught my eye across the street and waved hesitantly. I waved back, then drove away. The first call came at 4:17 p.m. Dad, where's the AC remote? It's 89 degrees in here, and we can't figure out how to turn on the air conditioning. There should be a thermostat on the wall. We found that, but nothing's happening. The units aren't turning on. That's strange. They were working fine last week. Can you come look at it? I'm in Charleston. 2-hour drive. Dad. Derek, you insisted on moving in. Part of homeownership is dealing with maintenance issues. There's an HVAC company listed in the welcome packet I left on the kitchen counter. What welcome packet? Blue folder. Has all the important information about the house. He hung up. I disabled the AC units by turning off the breakers and removing the labels from the electrical panel. Not illegal. Not sabotage. Just a temporary inconvenience that would require an expensive service call to diagnose. The second call came at 6:43 p.m., right as the evening high tide rolled in. Dad, the backyard is flooding. Water's coming out through the yard and onto the deck. It's high tide, Derek. Happens twice a day. You didn't tell us the property floods. It doesn't flood. The tide comes in. That's how beaches work. The kids' toys are floating away. Maybe don't leave toys in the tidal zone. The deck is underwater. No, the water is under the deck. The deck is on stilts specifically for this reason. It'll recede in a few hours. A few hours? Check the tide schedule. It's in the welcome packet. The third call came at 9:28 p.m. after dark. Dad, someone left a report about shark attacks on the kitchen counter. Is this area dangerous? I smiled. The report was a compilation of every shark sighting and attack within 100 miles over the past 50 years. Factual, public information, but presented in a way that made Folly Beach sound like the opening scene of Jaws. The ocean has sharks, Derek. That's nature. It says there was a great white spotted off this beach last month. Yes, about 12 miles offshore. They migrate through these waters. The kids were in the water today. The kids were in knee-deep water at a public beach with lifeguards. They were fine. Kelly's freaking out. She says she can't let the kids swim now. That's her choice. There's also information about jellyfish season, riptide warnings, and Portuguese man-of-war in the packet. Important things to know when you live at the beach. You're doing this on purpose. I'm providing information every coastal resident should have. Read the whole packet. Very educational. The fourth call came at 11:04 p.m. The neighbors are complaining about our cars. They say we're blocking their view and violating parking regulations. Are you parked on the street? In the driveway. Both vehicles? Yes. The driveway only fits one car. It's in the property survey, which is in. The welcome packet, I know. Where are we supposed to park the second car? The public lot 3 blocks away. Permit required. Information about permits is in the packet. This is insane. This is beach living, Derek. Limited space, strict regulations, community standards. Saturday morning brought a text from Jessica. Dad, this isn't funny anymore. I called her. What's not funny? You know what? The AC doesn't work. The yard floods twice a day. There are sharks. We can't park our cars. The neighbors are hostile. You set us up. I provided you with a house. Everything else is factual information about coastal living. You're sabotaging us. I'm educating you. Big difference. Derek wants to call a lawyer. For what? Providing accurate information about tide schedules and local wildlife. She was quiet. Jessica, how many times did Derek visit this house before deciding to move in? He didn't need to visit. He saw the photos. Photos don't show high tide. They don't show summer heat without working AC. They don't explain parking restrictions or community regulations. You should have told us. You should have asked. You should have visited. You should have done research before making a major life decision. But most importantly, you should have asked permission before announcing you were taking my house. It's family. Family shares. Family asks. Family respects boundaries. Family doesn't assume they can take what isn't theirs. I hung up. Saturday afternoon, Marcus called. Frank, your son-in-law, has been posting on the Folly Beach Community Facebook page asking about shark safety. He's stirred up quite a discussion. Is that so? Half the community is mocking him for not knowing basic beach safety. The other half is concerned he moved his kids here without understanding coastal living. Your neighbor Betty commented that the family seems unprepared for beach life. Betty's not wrong. Frank, what are you doing? Teaching a lesson about assumptions and entitlement. Saturday evening brought Derek himself, driving to Charleston to confront me at my apartment. You sabotaged us, he shouted when I opened the door. I did nothing illegal or unethical. The AC is broken. You broke it before we moved in. The AC breakers were off. Any homeowner should know to check the breaker panel. It's labeled clearly in the welcome packet. Everything is in this damn welcome packet that you deliberately make confusing. It's organized by category: utilities, maintenance, community rules, local wildlife, tide schedules, emergency contacts. How is that confusing? You're trying to force us out. I'm trying to help you understand what you got into. We're not leaving. We gave notice on our apartment. The kids are enrolled in school here. We're staying. That's your choice. You're going to fix the AC tomorrow. I'm happy to give you the HVAC company's number. They charge $150 just to come out, plus parts and labor. You should pay for it. Why? I'm not living there. You are. Because you're my father-in-law. Which doesn't make me responsible for your poor planning. Derek got back in his SUV and peeled out, leaving rubber marks on the parking lot. Sunday morning, the AC company discovered the breakers were off. Derek was charged $150 for the service call. He texted me a string of obscenities. Sunday afternoon, another high tide rolled in. Derek had left beach chairs and coolers in the yard. They floated away. He texted me, threatening legal action for not disclosing the flooding problem. I sent him a link to the NOAA Tide Schedule website. Public information, available to anyone with internet access. Sunday evening, Kelly called. Not Derek, Kelly. Frank, I need to be honest with you. This isn't working. What isn't working? The house is too small. The kids are on top of each other. The bedroom Derek and I are using is tiny. The bathroom is the size of a closet. We can't fit our furniture. It's a 2-bedroom beach cottage designed for 2 people maximum. The heat is unbearable. Even with the AC working now, it barely keeps up. It's adequate for 2 people. For 5 people generating body heat, cooking, opening doors constantly, it's insufficient. The beach is so crowded. There are strangers everywhere. It's not the private paradise Derek thought it would be. It's a public beach in summer. That's reality. Kelly sighed. Derek made a mistake, didn't he? Derek made several mistakes. Not researching the property. Not visiting before moving. Not asking permission. not considering whether the space was appropriate for your family. He was so excited about living at the beach. He convinced me it would be perfect. Living at the beach and vacationing at the beach are very different things. The neighbors hate us. They say we're parking wrong, being too loud, not following community rules. Folly Beach has a strong community with established expectations. Derek ignored all of them. What do we do? That's up to you, Kelly. But I'll tell you this. I'm not giving up my house. I worked 40 years for this. If Derek wants to stay, he needs to accept that he's a guest, with my permission, following my rules, respecting my property, or he can find somewhere else to live. Can I be honest about something else? Please. I never wanted to leave Columbia. I have friends there. The kids were happy in their schools. I gave up my nursing job, but I was thinking about going back part-time. Derek pushed this move because he wanted to live at the beach. I went along because I usually do. Kelly, you're my daughter-in-law. I care about you and the kids, but Derek needs to learn that the world doesn't rearrange itself to suit his desires. I know. Thank you for saying that. Monday morning, Derek called. His voice was different, defeated. What would it take for you to let us stay? Rent. Market rate. $2,800 a month for a 2-bedroom beachfront property. That's more than our Columbia rent. That's the market. Look it up. We can't afford that on top of all our other expenses. Then you can't afford to live here. There has to be another way. There is. You move out. I move back in. You find housing in Columbia or anywhere else you can actually afford. After all this, after moving everything, after the kids started telling people about living at the beach, after all this, you've learned an expensive lesson about assumptions and entitlement. What you do with that lesson is up to you. He hung up. Tuesday morning, the moving truck returned. I drove to Folly Beach and parked across the street, watching as Derek and Kelly loaded furniture, boxes, and disappointed children back into the truck. Jessica saw me and walked over. Her eyes were red from crying. "Are you happy now?" she asked. "No. I'm not happy that my daughter and grandchildren are upset, but I'm relieved that boundaries have been established." Derek's humiliated. His coworkers were asking about the beach house. Now he has to admit we moved back after 4 days. Humiliation builds character. He's angry at you. He's angry at reality. I'm just the messenger. We don't have anywhere to go. We gave notice on our Columbia apartment. Your old landlord called me yesterday. The new tenants backed out. The apartment is still available if you want it. Jessica's eyes widened. You arranged that? I made a phone call. Asked him to hold it a few extra days. Suggested things might not work out here. You planned this whole thing. I prepared for likely outcomes. There's a difference. She shook her head. I don't know whether to thank you or hate you. Thank me later, when Derek has learned to ask before taking, and when you're back in a home that actually suits your family. The moving truck pulled away at 11:23 a.m., followed by Derek's sub loaded with kids and regrets. I walked into my beach house and opened all the windows. The ocean breeze flowed through, carrying away the smell of too many people in too small a space. I found the welcome packet torn in half on the kitchen counter. Derek had scrawled across it, "This place is a nightmare." I taped it back together and filed it away. Someone else might need it someday. Marcus came by that evening with beer and congratulations. "The neighborhood is calling you a legend," he said. "Betty told everyone how you handled it. Said you never raised your voice, never acted hostile, just let reality teach the lesson." Reality's a better teacher than I could ever be. Derek's been posting angry rants on social media. Says you tricked him. How did I trick him? I bought a house. He announced he was taking it. I provided information. He ignored it. The shark report was a nice touch. Educational materials. All factual. The timing with the high tides was impressive. Nature's schedule, not mine. And the AC? Simple breaker issue. Any homeowner should know to check those. Marcus laughed. Frank, you're either a genius or the pettiest man I've ever met. I'm a retired engineer who spent 40 years planning for this house. Nobody takes that without consequences. Over the next few weeks, I resettled into my beach house. The routine I'd been building before Derek's interruption resumed. Morning coffee on the deck, afternoon reading in the chair Sarah loved, evening walks on the beach. Jessica called occasionally. Short conversations, usually about the kids. She was still hurt, but I could hear her understanding growing. Derek's been different since we moved back, she said one night. More humble, I guess. He researched our Columbia apartment before re-signing the lease. Asked questions. Read reviews. Actually visited the property manager. That's growth. He's still angry at you. That's fine. Anger fades. Lessons last. A month after the failed move, Kelly called. Frank, I wanted to thank you. For what? For stopping us before we made a bigger mistake. Derek had plans to invest in beach properties. He was going to quit his job and become a real estate investor here. He knew nothing about the market, the regulations, the reality of coastal property management. And now? Now he's back at his job with a new appreciation for steady income. And I'm enrolled in a refresher course for nursing. I'm going back to work part-time in the fall. That's wonderful, Kelly. The kids ask about the beach house sometimes. I tell them it's Grandpa's special place, and maybe we can visit someday if we ask nicely. You're all welcome to visit, for a weekend, with advance notice, following house rules. She laughed. Deal. 2 months later, Derek sent a text. Can we talk? In person? We met at a coffee shop halfway between Charleston and Columbia. Derek looked different, less cocky, more worn down by reality. I was an ass, he said without preamble. Yes, you were. I thought I could just take what I wanted. Because you're family. Because the house was sitting there. Because I wanted to live at the beach. And now. Now I understand that nothing's free. That decisions have consequences. That you don't get to just claim things because they seem convenient. That's wisdom many people never learn. I cost us thousands in moving expenses. Humiliated myself in front of neighbors and coworkers. Disrupted my kids' lives, all because I didn't bother to think things through. What did you learn? Derek was quiet for a long moment. That the world doesn't revolve around what I want. That research and planning matter. That asking is better than taking. Good lessons. Jessica says you knew all along it would fail. That you set me up. I provided accurate information about a situation you refused to research. You set yourself up. The Shark Report was excessive. The Shark Report was factual public information. Your reaction to it was excessive. Despite himself, Derek smiled slightly. Fair point. Derek, I don't dislike you. But you needed to learn that other people's property and plans aren't yours to claim. That lesson could have come much harder and later in life. Consider yourself lucky. Can I ask you something? What would you have done if we'd actually wanted to stay? If we'd offered to pay rent and follow your rules? I would have let you stay for a month while you found appropriate housing. But you never would have stayed long-term. The house is wrong for your family. You would have figured that out eventually. So you weren't just being stubborn? I was protecting something I'd worked 40 years to achieve. But I was also protecting you from a bad decision you were too stubborn to see clearly. Derek nodded slowly. I talked to Jessica's therapist. She suggested I see someone after all this. The therapist said something about how the people who love us sometimes have to let us fail to help us grow. Smart therapist. I don't know if we can have a good relationship after this. We can have an honest one. That's better. 3 months later, Derek and Kelly brought the kids to visit the beach house, just for a Saturday afternoon. They asked first, brought lunch to share, followed the house rules. The kids played in the shallow water under careful supervision. Derek and Kelly sat on the deck with me, watching the waves roll in. "It really is beautiful here," Kelly said. "It is. I understand why you fought for it." "I didn't fight for it. I simply refused to give it up." Derek watched his kids splash in the surf. "You know what's funny? I spent that whole 4 days thinking about everything that was wrong. The heat, the flooding, the sharks, the parking. I never once just sat and watched the ocean." That's often how it goes. We're so focused on what we think we deserve that we miss what's actually there. Profound. Frank. Not profound. Just observation from a man who waited 40 years for his turn. As the afternoon wore on and the tide started coming in, Derek gathered the kids' toys before the water reached them. "Learning," I said quietly to Jessica. She smiled. Slowly, but yes. Before they left, Derek approached me. "Can I ask a favor?" "Depends on the favor." "Can we come back? Like this, just visiting with permission." The kids loved it. And I think I need to learn how to appreciate this place without trying to own it. That's a good favor to ask. Yes, you can visit. With advance notice and respect for the house rules. Deal. As they drove away, Marcus appeared from next door. "Reconciliation." "Something like that." Derek's learning that wanting something and deserving it are different things. "Think it'll stick?" "Time will tell. But he asked permission before visiting next time. That's progress." 6 months after the disastrous move-in attempt, I sat on my deck at sunset, coffee in hand, watching the Atlantic turn gold and orange. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Thanks for teaching me the hard way. I needed it. Dinner next month. Our treat. Columbia has great restaurants that aren't at the beach." I texted back, "Sounds good. I'll drive up." The sun touched the horizon, spreading light across the water. Somewhere, a family of 5 was learning to live within their means and respect other people's boundaries. A daughter was rediscovering her independence and career. A son-in-law was growing up. And I was exactly where I'd worked 40 years to be, in my house, with my view, living my earned retirement. The welcome packet sat in my desk drawer, still taped together from when Derek tore it. I'd learned something too. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's bad decisions. Derek had wanted to take my house. Instead, he'd learned something far more valuable, that you can't shortcut your way to someone else's earned reward. That lesson would serve him far better than any beach house ever could. The tide rolled in, predictable and inevitable, washing away footprints and smoothing sand. Tomorrow I'd wake up to sunrise over the ocean, make coffee in my kitchen, read on my deck, live the life I'd planned and earned. And somewhere, Derek would wake up in Columbia, in an apartment he'd researched and chosen carefully, having learned that assumptions and entitlement are expensive teachers. Some lessons cost moving trucks and humiliation, but they're the lessons that stick. I raised my coffee cup to the setting sun, to 40 years of work finally paying off, to boundaries established and respected, to the sweet satisfaction of a house that remained mine because I'd refused to let entitlement win. The ocean rolled on, endless and patient, teaching its lessons to anyone willing to listen. I'd listened. I'd learned. I'd built my dream, and I'd protected it. That was enough.